Yeah, well, violence is never the answer. Violence has never solved anything, according to the main perpetrators of violence for the past 300 years. That's one of the ironclad platitudes that is forced down people in our country for sure from an early age. The idea that all form protest has to be nonviolent, or it's not a real form of protest. You're just a criminal at that point. But in the wake of these No Kings rallies, mostly just one, I believe, but I think something that happened a few months ago as well. But 8 million people take to the streets to show that they want to stand up to their authoritarian government. And in order to stand up to their authoritarian government to subvert reality, it's the form of a very orderly protest where absolutely no status quo is changed in the slightest, and you are just completely beholden to the rules that are set in front of you. So, yeah, good job, everyone.
So you're taking the pro-violence stance on this one?
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? Is that you can't, according to the rules of the game, you cannot have a violent protest. You just can't do it because as soon as the protest turns violent, that's when people start splattering it all over the news, right? Like,
Well, that gives Trump, well, look how violent they are. We've got to send in ICE, or we've got to, it's out of control down there. So yeah, no, I mean that is the reason I think is that it's optics. It's all optics. The entire point of the protest is to send optics in both directions. Optics to the left, which is like, hey, look how many people agree with you. You're not the minority. You're not the odd man out. All these people agree with you. But if it gets violent, starts getting riled up. Well, then the right wing media can take that and spin it and make it. The nonviolent part of it, I'm actually surprised. It's the first nonviolent leftist protest I've seen in the United States since I've been following politics. Kind of surprised, but also not
that's just not
surprised.
true. That's just
Well, I mean, maybe the last No Kings one. The George Floyd riots, those were fiery, but mostly peaceful.
well. Here you go. Like the George Floyd riots, right? As soon as like destruction of property happens, something that's not allowed according to the rules and regulations, the other side gets to then point at you and go like, "Oh yeah, insurrectionists, you're a
Exactly.
terrorist." I texted Richie this the other day.
Well,
Uh,
sorry, quick one, but same thing with January 6th. I mean, no one was
no,
more upset about
no,
January 6th
that's
than like
exactly what
moderate right
I was gonna say.
wingers. Like moderate right wingers were the most upset about January 6th out of anyone because they knew they're going to use this forever. They're probably not going to let them run, or they're going to constantly bring this up forever now and make it into like a massive thing that they're just going to keep repeating forever. And that was somewhat accurate. They still do get the January 6th thrown out there all the time, but either way, I mean, the left still gets the George Floyd thing thrown out there all the time. It's obviously I'm never for violence, and I actually think the non-violent part of it was fairly respectable. I don't think anyone out there knew what they were protesting. Is the problem.
It was actually like looking back on it, a godsend probably that those did not turn violent, right?
It depends how radical, I guess, you are. If you're looking for an actual revolution where we're gonna actually fight back and fight the power, well then, I mean, in that case, maybe violence is the answer. But in that case, you're gonna need people who actually know what they're doing and like can actually start a revolution. It's not going to be like a bunch of people who just got off of work from their day job. Now they're heading over to the protest to have a couple beers with the boys before they go home. It's like,
Well, I mean, that's we. I
how
think we brought
serious
this
are
up.
we? Is the
Well,
question.
that's like literally what happened in like Nepal, though. The Gen Z apparently literally like overthrew the government via Discord chats.
Yeah, what was that one again?
That's
they were just
that
it was
no,
just an
that's
online attack or something.
no. It's like they had some sort of like oppressive government literally via group chats on Discord. Enough young people like congregated and decided to like, dude, they like, burned down their fucking like house of like legislature, I believe. Like they literally overthrew their government
And it
via
was just
Discord.
it was
They
the group
started,
chat. The group
yeah,
chat got fired up, and
no, they
that's
were
pretty
electing. They literally like held elections via polls on Discord.
that's pretty cool. I mean, it does go to show the technology.
which is
is real.
which is what we were talking about. Like, could we have governments only on our phones? And I don't see why not, realistically.
I mean, yeah, we could definitely. I mean, it's clear that we have the communication channels now that we've never had before that can be used for the form of revolution that we've probably never seen before. I mean, we might not recognize a revolution when we see it, just because it might take a form that we're unfamiliar with. But I mean, back to the no kings thing.
Is the revolution going to be like a hashtag? Like literally just like some movement that gets started online?
I mean, I think that that Elon Musk. Well, I'd say there was two revolutions. There was one when conservatives started getting censored for speech, which was kind of a revolution, in my opinion, in the wrong direction. It was an authoritarian revolution. And then when Elon Musk bought Twitter and basically freed everyone from the abyss who was banned, that was somewhat of I mean, there's different degrees of revolutions. These aren't government revolutions, but I mean, it was definitely a battle. Like when we talk about wars, Civil War, all this stuff, it's like, well, when we think of war, we think of this battleground, like, kinetic wars. But I mean, there's the ground isn't where we meet to communicate anymore. We're doing that online now, and so there is a battle for online territory rather than actual real physical territory. But I mean, but to your point, yes, I mean, it I think that our world is so different now than it has been since the last time we saw a legitimate revolution, that when we do see a legitimate revolution here, we may not recognize it for what it is.
I said I saw no reason why we couldn't have government via our phones. And realistically, we can. The technology is absolutely there. What isn't there is that form of organizing movement, essentially, to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And decentralization. I mean, if you did it on your phone, then Apple's the king, so there'd have to be a decentralized way of doing it. I wonder if people aren't paying much attention to it, but there might be a new technology that's decentralizing things, but we've
I
already
mean,
talked about that.
would it have to be like non-Apple? Like, couldn't it be some kind of like decentralized app? I mean, there's the App Store, I guess, but couldn't it be like a website that anyone with internet access can just have access to?
Yeah, but who owns the website?
No one put it on the blockchain, right?
Boom.
I,
That's
I
where I
don't
was
know.
going. If it's on the blockchain, then yeah, that's the whole purpose of the blockchain. That's what the technology is. It's beyond currency. There's more to it than that. And I think that, it might be a decade or so before we see it, but there is potential there for like a decentralized government. But anyway, well, back to the No Kings
Go
thing.
back.
So
Yeah.
my thing with the No Kings protest, I was I kept seeing like I saw a post that was like, why are Republicans so angry about the No Kings protest? And as a Republican, I had to laugh at that one because I was enjoying my afternoon, not angry at all, and I see someone who is, standing in the street, wearing two N95 COVID masks with the sign that says "Die, fascist, die," and then they're asking me why I'm so angry. It's a little bit of a projection, it seems like.
Yeah, I got you on that one for sure. Yeah, I'm disappointed that like I don't know, like that's the best we can do essentially. I don't know, is like a general strike, is that like illegal? I think so, right?
Well, so I saw a couple people talking about general strike. What does that mean, general strike?
It's so when you go on strike, typically it would be like truckers are going on strike because they're bargaining with like the union, essentially, right? So all of the truckers agree, like, all right, if we just simply don't go into work, that's our leverage, essentially, right? We don't go into work, that this trucking company is fucked. We bring them to the bargaining table, right? The general aspect is like it's not industry specific. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but if enough people simply just like don't go to work, essentially, everything's fucked.
So,
Realistically,
I mean,
the
yeah,
people's power is in our like collective ability to do nothing.
it would be much more effective than just a Saturday afternoon out on the town like
It might be
everyone had.
illegal.
I mean, how could it be illegal if ever, like I don't see how that could be
That-
illegal. I mean, if it is, I don't think they'll have the means to enforce it. I'm actually a fan of that in a sense of like this isn't more effective way to protest. Definitely, I agree. But
well,
my
like,
question is, what are we protesting? That's the question.
or
I mean, no one seems to know. Everyone's protesting different things. I
I
saw
think
somebody
it's
out there with a sign that had 7 different things on there that were all like contradicting each other, where one was like, the billionaires need to be taxed, and then the other one was like no more tariffs. It's like, okay, so you obviously don't understand what that is. So what is it? We're gonna quit. We're all gonna quit our jobs and make no money and stand in the street all day. For what though? For what? What is the goal? What is the issue? Because I'm not saying there is no issue. I'm just saying it seems unclear amidst the big mob.
yeah. I mean, the biggest unifying factor there has to just be anti-Trump.
Boom, it trumps character. So we're gonna all quit our jobs and throw ourselves into the streets because we're not big fans of the way that the guy who we've never met, who we never have to hang out with, we never even have to see if we don't want to. We're not big fans of the way he looks and talks and acts. And so we're gonna quit our jobs, throw our futures away to go stand in the street and protest him based purely on character. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I have certain qualms, many qualms with the current administration, but agree there was no outspoken protest of like what it was about, right? What were the George Floyd riots about? Protests. What were those about?
Well, police brutality.
Police brutality, right? So like that has a cause, right?
Right.
There's a reason for it. I mean, maybe
And
it's
I think
because
that's
there's
just the main Republican criticism is that
maybe it's because there's 30 reasons for it, right? There's been so many things we disagree with that I just want to voice my general disagreement with the administration.
and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things I disagree with on him too, but it does seem to me, and I'm not talking about you specifically at all. I'm just saying like when I see, a lot of these influencers and commentators posting stuff, it does seem like it is fundamentally a character thing. I do remember when we had the Halloween episode last year, when we were talking, I was talking about, all right, here's my one thing that I like about Trump. And we were kind of passing it back and forth. One thing you did say was like the thing I dislike about him most is his character, which is a genuine criticism, but also it I feel like that is the stem where so many people, because they hate his character so much, they will, no matter what his policy is, they will take the other side. I feel like I see that quite a bit too.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying, obviously.
Like
But
the
there's
Republican joke is like if Trump cured cancer, then the Democrats would be pro cancer. Like obviously a hyperbolic reference,
yeah,
but I mean, in a way, I do see some of that. I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying like some of the mainstream kind of Democrat, Twitter people like that Harry Sisson guy or like people like that. It's just like, all right, like cut the guy, it's like, but I think it waters down their criticisms of the things he actually does bad. That's my main thing with it is like when he, if everyone's like mad at him because he changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and everyone's like, this is an outrage, this is fascism, and they keep doing that over and over. And then when he militarizes domestic cities, and they say, oh, it's an outrage, it's fascism, it's like everyone already heard that before when it was like the dumbest shit ever. That is, I think, my main
yeah,
my
that
main thing, my main criticism of the Democrat side.
you've said that a lot, and I don't really disagree with you when whatever. But one thing I would say is I still do. That is still one of the things I dislike about him the most. I will stand behind that fact or that statement that I do dislike his character as one of the main reasons because I do think that the executive of our fucking government, the person in highest command, should be held to like a pretty high standard of decorum, of, professionalism, something that he is the fucking opposite of, like even a guy like George Bush, right? Who no one would say was, an absolute like statesman, right? The George Bush is dumb was like the whole joke of his administration, but he wasn't so like unbecoming of a human being of a just like the way he handles himself essentially that it shines poorly on the United States of America, whereas I do think that's the case of Trump.
See, yeah, I mean, I don't really see what you mean. I can't imagine, like, I think Trump's very professional, very mature, very polished in his behavior. I can't imagine anything could, uh, Hang on, real quick. I just got sent this. Let me play it. I'm not sure what it is. I'll share my screen so that everyone else can see too. An announcement from our president. Let's see what we got here. Probably important.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
What's that he's wearing? So yeah, that's the president of the United States wearing a crown, dumping shit on the American populace. Am I seeing that right?
Yep. So as I was saying, very presidential. But no, I mean it's hard to disagree with that. I mean, obviously he kind of makes a joke out of the position. I think that there was already a lot of disaffected people in America, and Trump stepped in to fill the void and be the guy who's standing up against the system, and that's still the act he's carrying with. He's intentionally representing himself as someone who doesn't even respect these people, doesn't respect the institutions or the so-called experts because they don't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to screw over the little guy, and that's you. That's my followers. Those you guys are the best. I've got your back. That's his whole image. And so I think that's what's driving a lot of this nonsense. But I mean, as someone who cares mostly about policy and setting up good incentive structures and maintaining a prosperous economy, this isn't good. It's not great.
Speaking towards the professionalism of this administration, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, was asked a question over, I think it was text by a journalist. I think it was something along the lines of they were asking why Trump and Putin were meeting in Budapest. It's a interesting location. Putin would have to fly over like enemy airspace. And I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that, but like they always like fly like around like airspaces when they have to. Like anytime like Netanyahu like flies to meet us, he has to like fly like this like curvy like wide angle.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Like if a country owns the territory, they also they own it infinitely vertically as well. It's kind of
Well, this is actually a meme, but do you also own it vertically like down? I, I saw
that's a
I
good question.
saw I saw it was like a realtor or whatever, a first time homeowner is called you up asking these questions like, so you own the land and everything above it, but do you own all of the land infinitely down towards the earth's core? Like where is your land
Yeah,
extent?
how deep? Yeah, how deep is the property line?
But anyways, the journalist had asked why they were meeting in Budapest, like who made this decision to meet there, and Caroline Leavitt responded, "Your mom did." So we now have the press secretary answering questions with your mom jokes.
It's a very meme-worthy presidency, I'd say. Their marketing tactic is memes, which I kind of like it. I mean, one thing too is you don't want to take yourself too serious. You also want to take yourself too unserious. Trump's and his administration seem to be leaning towards the unserious way for sure. But I mean, the your mom, I mean, that to me that sounds like a boomer trying to be hip. That's hey fellow kids, your mom. It's one of those.
You know how old Caroline Leavitt is?
I mean, isn't she like I don't know 50 maybe or something?
Dude, she's our age.
Wait, no way.
Look it
I
up.
guess wait, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Hang on.
Dude, she
Let me
looks
see
like
a
she's like
picture over here.
45 and she is literally our age. It's insane.
How old is she?
She's literally like 28 or something. I'm telling you.
Holy shit. Yeah, she's 28.
Yeah.
Dude, what?
Uh
No, that is the person I was picturing.
yeah. And that's insane, isn't it?
I mean, I guess 50 was a little bit of was an overestimate, but I mean,
So and
I would have guessed late 30s at
this plays in perfectly. I sent Richie this meme the other
Okay,
day.
that actually okay, well, hang on. Sorry. That changes my whole perspective on this. I was thinking this was like a middle-aged woman trying to make a your mom joke. This is someone who is our age making a your mom joke, and that context makes it much more embarrassing, I feel like.
I sent Richie this meme the other day. It was the Onion, and it said the GOP still pulling incredibly well with young people who already look old. And
Yeah, yeah.
this is a prime example of that one, let me tell you.
Yeah, I did not even register Caroline Levitt as one of the examples, but I mean, I can think of like a couple right off the top of my head.
I gotta get another jab in at her. Here's a direct quote from Caroline Levitt, press secretary of the United States of America. The Democratic Party's main constituency is made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
That one I like. That one I agree with.
So yeah, when
I think you're one of the few.
when the right fucking talks about like, oh my god, like they're always so mean to us, like we gotta tone the red.
Well, I mean, come on,
There's
that's
this shit.
they've been saying that about us. Everyone
No,
who
it
votes,
is.
the
It's
main
both
constituency of Trump is
it's
the
both
Nazis, the white supremacists, the racists, and
It
the
is. It is.
deplorable idiots.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
both
that goes
ways.
both ways.
It's
But I mean, I will say I agree with that. I think you're probably the only one of the only ones I know who is just, a compassionate guy who cares about the poor. I think all of the other ones are terrorists.
who's not a Hamas terrorist and an illegal alien
Yeah.
or wait, what's the last one? A violent criminal. Yeah. That's the other one.
I can't see any other. No, but I mean, okay, so realistically, obviously that's BS as usual, radicalizing propaganda as usual in modern American politics. But I do think that a lot of what's going on is that people are influenced. Like, good-hearted people do get influenced to start believing wrong things by, maybe not, I mean, probably Hamas, but I would say definitely like antagonistic agents, whether that's from China, Russia, you've got bots online doing all this. That is a real thing. We know that's a real thing. So I'm definitely not saying that all of the people on the left are terrorists or anything, or even that a large enough portion of them that we should be talking about are terrorists. But I do think that there are probably terrorists or like radical communists or whoever is trying to take over or gain influence. I do think that when it comes to like the youth generation, especially nowadays when, we grew up, there was no TikTok really. That type of insanely addictive algorithm wasn't a thing. We had the Facebook stuff and the Twitter stuff, but that was like smoking weed, and the TikTok is like crack cocaine. And so you do get these younger generations, and you know damn well that all of these, all these antagonistic agents are definitely using that as a weapon. I mean, it is worth considering that, like, how much of what I'm seeing on TikTok or anywhere online really is just propaganda that's just it's not that it's just like uninformed rumors that are spreading, but it's more so like intentional misinformation. I mean, it's fresh on the mind right now because I was just reading about the battles that went on about disinformation during the Cold War. And so, but thinking about that, it seems like that's still happening, definitely.
This is a slightly different topic, but I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of some of what you're saying, portion of what you're saying, maybe none of what you're saying. No, I'm kidding. First thing I wanted to bring up, you said like we had like a Facebook and Twitter, but that wasn't as bad as TikTok. And I would disagree slightly. I know what you're saying because Twitter and Facebook and the things we had now are equally as like addicting and crazy as TikTok. It's the difference comes in. I think we talked about this on the podcast before. What we had was actually social media. What we had back in the day, you would log on to Facebook or Twitter. You would only see your cousins post, your buddies post, the girl you liked post, and, like a couple other random people. You wouldn't have completely tailored algorithms directly for your brain. It was still the social aspect of social media. Now, literally nobody tweets. Who do you, like, again, we said this before, it's worth saying again, who do you know of your friends, family, whatever, that like actually tweets things out, that actually posts their thoughts on Facebook? Like, no one. That's up to influencers now. That's up to the media. That's up to companies, organizations now. So it's not so much that like TikTok is so much different. It's just like the new style of algorithm, the non-social media essentially is what it should be called now, because no one's actually like sharing ideas for the most part. It's you are getting ideas put into your brain, which is kind of what you were saying, right? About misinformation and disinformation. That is what's happening now. Instead of you actually going out and like talking to people about the issues, that aspect has been completely taken away. You now passively receive all of that information, most of which is probably false, maybe entirely fabricated, like you said. I think the dead internet theory is alive and well at this point.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, and I agree with what you're saying too. When I'm saying TikTok, what I guess what I should clarify what I mean is TikTok was the first to really do this or do it
Yeah.
well, which was to
Yeah.
make this real style format. And I mean, they had Vine, they had all these other ones, but TikTok really did it well. And you mentioned the algorithms. The algorithm shifted with TikTok, where what it used to be was the algorithm would be a network, and they would have people were connected to each other in the sense where, if I know you, then it's likely that I know this other guy who went to school with both of us, right? And so it would connect people. But TikTok kind of flipped it on its head, and it would connect content. And so it people have, the accounts are more like the links between the pieces of content, where it used to be the content was a link between accounts. If I liked a lot of your stuff, then I'd see more of your stuff. And now my account's linked to your account. But what TikTok did was they linked the content. So now if you like a TikTok about, say, modern monetary theory, something we were talking about earlier, well, you're not going to see more TikToks from that account, but what you are going to see is more TikToks about modern monetary theory,
Right.
because it's the content that's connected. And once they did that, and it became much more addictive, much more kind of down the rabbit hole style algorithms where people spend hours going, and getting into these, I mean, sometimes probably productive, sometimes you're learning stuff, other times you might be getting guided in the wrong direction. But either way, people were spending way more time online. And so all of the competing social media companies, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, had no choice but to copy that algorithm and put it on theirs too, if they wanted to make sure that people didn't leave their platforms and go to TikTok's platform. And so that was a revolution in algorithm that goes kind of
That
unnoticed.
was a revolution for
I
sure.
mean, it goes unnoticed because most people think, I've had social media since 2010 or whatever, and now it's just more videos. It used to be pictures and words, and now it's videos, but it's still, but it's a whole different technology, and so, but it's hard to really, like, I did not recognize that for many years after, until I started reading something about it and realized that was a big deal.
I think you've said that one before on here, like the connecting people to content instead of people to people. And as soon as you break it down like that, it's like, fuck, that's exactly what it is, right? And that was the big switch, right? So realistically, this shouldn't be called social media anymore. It should just be called like
It
the
is the media.
media, digital
mean,
digital media, the
I
media.
mean, yeah, I would agree with that 100%. It is the media, because at this point too, I mean, what other media are you consuming?
I don't
Other
watch
than
the news.
streaming
Do
platforms.
you watch the news?
No, I mean, I'll see a
Okay,
TikTok. I'll see a TikTok of someone commenting on CNN's report. That's about it.
I
Or a
guess
reel on some platform,
they're
or
still
I'll
kind
see
of
someone
connected a
on a
little.
podcast. Someone on a podcast will be like, "Yeah, look at what fucking Jake Tapper on CNN said," and then they'll play a quick clip, and then they'll comment on what he commented on. It's like, but I'm
Mhm.
not sitting around watching it. I don't think anyone is. Is it? I mean, maybe the older generations
The
probably
older
still are,
generation still does, I believe.
but even I mean, have they seen? I mean, podcasts are much better. You can watch them
No,
on the
no,
go.
no, no. They have not seen podcasts.
Podcasts, you
Interestingly,
can watch them on the go. You can, on the CNN, you got to sit down on your couch, put all your attention on it. Podcasts, you can be doing laundry. You can have the AirPods in. You can be driving, driving your grandkids to summer camp, and you can have Ben Shapiro in your ear going on. It's just as good as Fox News, or better.
no, it's pretty good. So you said streaming services as well. Is that that is obviously media? That's some type of media, but is that like it shapes public opinion to some extent? Still, I would say, but I think the social medias have like way more influence than the streaming services.
I think social media has more influence than the streaming services. I also think that the streaming services have more influence than we perceive. Netflix seems it's all just documentaries about how all the things that you liked as a kid, those were all really bad.
Yeah,
It's like shit like
yeah.
that. And I mean, that's I've got a
Have you
book.
watched The Boys?
Yeah, oh, I love The Boys. It's one of my favorites.
You love The Boys?
Yeah, we actually Gen V, the new season of Gen V came out. I haven't
That's where
watched
I'm
it yet,
going.
so no
You haven't
no
watched it yet?
spoilers. No, I haven't watched it yet, but the reason why, because I started rewatching the first season because it's been a while, it's been a while since I watched it and I couldn't really remember any of the characters or anything.
Have you seen all of The Boys?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I'm up to date on that.
I don't know if I want to say it. No, I'm gonna say it. That shit is straight liberal propaganda, bro.
But yeah, I know it is.
Yeah,
But I
okay.
mean, it's
Yeah,
actually it's cool. It's good.
yeah. No, it's really good because
It's
they
one of
do
those things like
they
oh,
will go
sorry.
at the left as well in some seasons. Like I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like they'll show some like absolute dumbass like blue hairs, shit like that. Like they'll do a good job of that too. This new season of The Boy, or no, sorry, Gen V. Like there were a few times of like, holy fuck, like this is straight liberal leftist
Cringeworthy
propaganda.
propaganda. Okay. Well, I mean,
It's not really that cringeworthy, but like you'll see. I don't know. There's some stuff.
I saw a video of Neil. Is it deGrasse or Degrassi?
I think I've heard
Tyson.
both.
I like Degrassi better. Neil deGrasse Tyson. I saw a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I think it's DeGrasse actually, but I think I've
All
heard
right,
both.
fine. I saw a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about a while ago, talking about how he can't watch shows and movies anymore because he's a physicist, and he'll watch like a Marvel movie and it'll just bug him, it'll bother him because he knows that the physics of that scene are actually that's not what would have happened, and like the physics
He's
don't
an
make
ass.
sense.
He's a fucking asshole.
But so I remember hearing that a while, like a long time ago, 5 years ago. It was very early, maybe Joe Rogan episode back when podcasts were brand new, and thinking basically, yeah, I mean that seems ridiculous, just enjoy the movie. But I do now sometimes find myself where I cannot enjoy a good movie or show because I recognize the propaganda immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
The Boys is one of them, definitely liberal propaganda. I do recognize that, but it's also they do a good enough job of making it exciting and making the plot line good that I can get past it.
Now,
If it's like kind of like a not
if it's like
great production already, and then you're gonna try to feed me some fucking slop from the propaganda machine, I'm out. That's part of the reason I don't really spend much time watching TV or movies anymore. I'd much rather watch YouTube videos because then I can watch a video and maybe this one's liberal propaganda, but then I can click over here and see the conservative propaganda and figure out,
and I don't know.
probably somewhere in the middle is the real
What's
answer.
weird is like all the good shows before the last like 5 to 10 years, you were not like spoon fed that propaganda so blatantly. Like I'm thinking of like any other like have you ever seen The Wire?
No, I haven't. I've seen like a little bit of it. I don't even think I made it through season 1 though.
Like most of this shit's like apolitical, like Breaking Bad. How much
Yeah, Breaking Bad.
politics are in Breaking Bad? Like
No,
none,
yeah, that's
like
a good point actually.
like none from what I remember. Like how much politics is in like Game of Thrones? A lot. It's all politics, but it's not at all about like current politics, right? They're not trying to like make a statement with anything, right? I feel like that shit's kind of been shoved down our throats a little bit in the last like 5 to 10 years with even some of like the really good high production shows. There's a fantasy series called The Green Bone Saga. Pretty
I
fucking
think
good.
I've heard of that. I've heard
It's
of that, I think.
essentially, if I had to break it down, it's kind of The Godfather meets like Japanese samurai bushido code essentially. So it's pretty sweet. But I think I finished that. I've been reading a lot of fantasy the last like year. I just read a different series before this one. I think I'm gonna tap into some classics now.
I do like the classics. The only fiction
They're
I've read
so
recently has been like I mean, I don't know if I guess you consider it classics, like something like 1984, like Fahrenheit 451, something that
Classics.
is
Those are classics.
fiction, but it is designed, it's written with a message attached, I do kind of like that.
Dude, here's what's weird is I brought up like the fiction the other day about like male readers, and I'm like, that makes no sense to me. All of the best books of all time are all fiction books. And then I realized fiction becomes literature when it's like really good, right?
Yeah, true.
It's
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
what it
Now
is.
it's literature, yeah.
A Tale of Two Cities. That's a work of fiction, but that's literature because it's so damn good, right? And
Yeah, right.
that applies to literally everything.
Once you become successful enough, you no longer can be murdered. Now you can only be assassinated. Kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Once it's considered that good, it's no longer a
Yes,
book. Now it's literature.
right. Like Dostoevsky, like my favorite book of all time, The Brothers Karamazov. That's a work of fiction, but no one's like, "Oh, you're reading fiction, bro. You're reading Dostoevsky." It's like, no, I'm reading.
Literature.
Yeah, I'm reading literature, one of the classics, right? But I'm thinking, you ever read East of Eden? I think I'm gonna read that.
No,
It's
I
like
don't
a
know. I was gonna say, how do you, I can't pronounce his name. Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky.
I do want to read his stuff. I hear a lot
He's the
of good
goat.
stuff about him, and I bought this book the other day. I've got a couple on my list, so I might not get into it for a while. You know, Nietzsche. I've heard a ton of like great stuff about him. That he's very like, once you read his stuff, it blows your mind. So I saw
Nietzsche's
one of his
good.
books on the Nietzsche. Yeah, yeah. I saw some of his books, and I was like, all right, I gotta grab them while they're here. So I've got them sitting there. I don't know when I'm gonna get around to it, but I do want to check that out too.
The only one I've read of his is Thus Spoke Zarathustra. That one's very good.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna read a few like American classics. Like we read Gatsby in high school, and like that's a great book, but you can't appreciate some of these books that you're reading like in high school. Like you're reading some of the best books ever written, but like you don't have like the life experience to like appreciate it for what it is, right?
Yeah, 100%. Even college a little bit too, where there's like plenty of stuff from definitely high school and even a little bit from college where it was like, oh, dude, if I could look, if my job now was to go to that class and learn, like now I do that for fun. At the time, I hated doing it because I had, I was like, this is what you have to do. This is your assignment. And I was like, I don't want to do this, or I'm going to half ass it. And now it's like, oh, I'd love to do that just for fun. It's like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, and there's books from high school. I remember I'd read like the Spark Notes version of it, and then like now like a decade or whatever later, it's like, oh fuck, why the hell did I read the Spark Notes version of that? It's like one of the best books like ever written.
Yeah. What was the one I can't remember the name, but we definitely read it in high school. I think it was about like Darwin when Darwinism first came out.
But yeah,
It
what
was like
that's
something
Inherit the Wind,
Inherit the Wind. Yeah, yeah.
dude.
That one
That
we
one's
had to read,
massive.
and I spark noted the whole thing. And now, I started reading like a little bit of Richard Dawkins and stuff. And
Yeah,
now I'm like, oh fuck, I wish I would have read that book. It
dude.
sounds interesting now.
Honestly, you should just read that. I think it's like 90 pages or something.
Yeah, that was
Did
the
you
one.
actually read A Tale of Two Cities in high school?
I scammed it.
Dude, because I actually read that when like everyone was reading like the No Fear version, which was like that's like the translated into like modern English. So like everyone was like doing that, but I like read like the full fucking book. I'm like, dude, this is so insanely good.
Yeah, I
I
can't
appreciated that
remember
one.
much about it at all, so I probably didn't really read it that thoroughly.
What's your favorite book of all time?
Matt, well, I guess I'd have to separate fiction and nonfiction in that case, I guess, because it's hard to compare the two. One of my favorite books of all time is called Darwin Among the Machines. It's been a while since I've read it, so I might be botching it a little bit, but it's a nonfiction. It was written in like late 80s, early 90s. Super interesting. It goes into a whole thing about Darwinism, and at the time, it wasn't like Darwin was some brainiac who just came up with this. There was, this, it was a science race. It was like a race to figure out and put together a coherent thesis. And there were multiple people who did it. There was a guy named Samuel Butler who did it. There was a guy named Lamarck who did it. And then there was Darwin. And these were competing theses to try to, using scientific method, had to try to figure out which one was right. Well, it turns out Darwin won because Lamarck had something a little bit wrong. And that's the part that I'm annoyed with myself for forgetting because it was the interesting part. It was something about I could get back to it if we want to. Let me think about it. But either way, Darwin won, and Lamarck kind of came in second place. 80 years later, or however long it's been, now they're looking at the evolution of machines. And so far, Lamarck has nailed that. Like, if you took Lamarck's theory that he was trying to apply to biological species, and you instead applied it to machines, it almost lines up perfectly. And so I thought it was mind blowing to me. I started reading it around the time that AI was first becoming a thing. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Would you
There's a
say
lot of
that's
just
your
good
favorite book of all
wiz.
time then probably?
That's probably my favorite. Yeah, there's a lot of good wisdom in there, a lot of good lines just about the nature of the universe. I actually made a list of them. I could probably pull it up. But what's your favorite?
My favorite's the Brothers Karamazov, Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Is
I
that one
read
that
that
good? I got to check that one out then.
best after you read that book. I've read this about Dostoevsky online. It's like anytime you read Dostoevsky, switching to any other author is like la di da di da. Like the sky was blue, the trees were green. Like I went to the store today because like the pure depth of I think that there's a Dostoevsky quote. It's the only thing worth thinking about or discussing is the human heart in contention with itself. And that's entirely what he writes about. Like a lot of authors have great prose, right? They can describe a landscape beautifully. You get none of that with Dostoevsky. You get 30 long pages of conversations between characters, like just talking about basically philosophy the entire time. And do you know his story at all?
No, that I was
All
actually
right.
just about to ask.
All
What
right.
what's his background
Dostoevsky
here?
was born into like serfdom in Russia, right? Like pre-revolution Russia. He was born a serf. Like the revolution like happens in his lifetime. He gets in trouble with the authorities. I forget over what, but he's put in jail. And him and like his other like six buddies or whatever, at a certain point, they're like found guilty. They're like, all right, the sentence is death. They get brought out. They're put in front of a firing squad. Bags get pulled over their heads, and then they're not shot. They pull the fucking bags over their heads and go, yeah, actually, that was like all a performance. You're getting like 10 years hard like labor in Siberia instead. So Dostoevsky literally facing the firing squad, facing death, gets relieved of death at the last minute, then goes and serves like 10 years hard time in Siberia, leaves there, comes home, is like a degenerate drinker for like most of the rest of his life, meets a good woman. The good woman like gets him clean in like 5 or like 8 year span, maybe. He wrote like 4 or 5 of the best books ever written. And then he like died.
That is pretty awesome. So when he was first, is this so he lived pre-revolution in Russia, right? Is
I
this
believe so.
is this the Soviets that are putting him in Siberia, or is this also still
No,
pre-revolution?
that's pre that revolution.
Oh, when was this guy alive? We talking like hundred
18,
like? Oh, okay. This is wait, okay. I was thinking it was like early 1900s. Okay.
no,
Yeah, no,
1800.
I've heard many good things about
He's so good. But that's
Dostoevsky.
that's my one. A Tale of Two Cities is still probably like one of the best books I've ever read.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
gotta give that one another go.
have you heard of Taking Down the House?
No, I don't think
Dude,
so.
I read that. I loved this book. It was if you ever seen the movie 21, the like card counting movie. That's the book that it's based off of. And basically it's about how
Okay,
like
yeah, I've heard of
eight
it. Yeah,
MIT grads basically realized like we can like gain an advantage on the blackjack system by like counting and like working together essentially. So like the system they have is like insane. Like you have like guys planted throughout the tables playing like $5 mins or whatever. And as soon as like the count gets hot, then they call over, they like have some like hand signal or something. They call over like the high roller, and the high roller comes and throws down like 10 G's or whatever, right? So that he like shows up, only plays like the tables that are hot, keeps like rolling around or whatever. So like they're basically saying like it became more of like acting than it did like counting cards or anything. You had to like pretend to be like other people. You had to pretend to be like a high roller for the night who's like coming in, throwing down 10 grand, doesn't care if he wins or loses. But that book was like super interesting for sure.
yeah, The Art of Deception, pretty good. So I read it a while ago, but I took some notes on it, and I went back and looked at them recently, just because looking at the stock market, as I said on the last episode, I think this thing's going down, so I wanted to go check some notes. But you'll never believe it, but the author is George Soros himself, the boogeyman. But George Soros, not a great guy, but fantastic investor, and so wanted to see what he's got. So I read this book, and it's all about something called reflexivity. Have you heard of this? It's like referring to the stock market, but I think it also applies to like a lot of other things too. But
Like
basically,
just
just
like stay water idea.
so it basically like the his thesis basically that it makes perfect like after reading it, it was like one of those like, oh yeah, it's perfect sense. Is that when you look at cause and effects, some things are very easy to figure out the cause and effect. I got hammered last night. That's the cause, and now I'm hungover the following morning. That's the effect. Okay, that one's easy. But then when you get into like he's focused on economics, so we'll use that as an example. But I think it applies to other stuff. But if you get into economics, a lot of times your intuition will flip the cause and effect, and it's difficult to identify what the cause and what the effect is, and that kind of throws off your whole logic of thinking about things. And if you can just double check every time, do I have the cause and effect right? It'll help you a lot. For example, so right now, so the stock market has gone up, tremendously for a while, and over the past week, it's nothing major, but it's starting to come down. You're going up on the roller coaster, and now you're 1/10 of
You're
the
on the
way
way.
down the slope, and you're looking down at the abyss, thinking, "Fuck," and so people are panicking, and so the question would be then people are panicking is the effect. So what's the cause?
What's the cause of people panicking?
Yeah, what's the cause?
Parabolic curve that they see.
Your intuition would think, well, people are panicking because the stock market's going down. But that's wrong. The stock market's going down because people are panicking. The people are the stock market. The people own the stocks. If they start panicking and selling off, that's actually what causes the stock market to go down. And that could be applied to a whole bunch of things in economics. And it was very mind blowing to me. That's another one of my top favorite books. But beyond economics, I think that could apply to life as well. Sometimes people are thinking, well, I'm pissed off because of all the shit that's going bad for me. And it's like, well, maybe all the shit that's going bad for you is happening because you're walking around pissed off.
I got you.
Confidence
So
precedes its justification.
so it's, the cause is people are panicking. The effect is stocks are going down. So then you have
Stocks
to
are going
ask
down
yourself, why are people panicking?
because the stocks are too high.
Yeah,
But
that's
now
what
here's
I
this is
was
another
going
good
for.
one.
They were looking at the parabolic line going up. So
Okay,
then,
yeah. So then, yeah, you would be right in that case. And so so he wrote this in 2008, 2009, right after the first big crash there. And here's another good one. And this was the real one that really like stuck with me is if the stock market were to collapse, say tomorrow, all of the stocks are priced too high right now. Like we just said, stocks are priced too high. All the speculators are, you know, they feel confident still, even though we can tell by looking at fundamentals the stocks are too high. So if the market were to start tanking, and then the Fed had to make the decision of do we print more money and artificially boost it back up, or do we let it tank? Basically, what's happening is if you're a professional investor, you know the stocks are too high. So whether you take your money out or you keep your money in, you're making a bet on whether or not the Fed is going to print more money and save the economy if it were to go down. If you think they will, you keep your money in. If you don't think they will, then you take your money out. But when it gets back to the reflexivity thing is that whether the Fed prints the money or not, that's the effect. The cause is that so many people are betting on them printing the money that they now have no choice but to print the money. Because if they didn't print the money,
it's
everyone would be
fucked.
out of a job,
Yeah, it's fucked. It's
So
all fucked.
because so no, you would think that like, oh, the Fed's gonna print the money, and that's why the smart investors they know that, and so that's why they're keeping their money in. But no, in fact, it's the opposite. It's the smart investors are keeping their money in because they know by doing that they are the cause and they can force the Fed to print more money. Now the Fed's in a position where they can't do anything but print more money because otherwise, it causes a financial panic.
And that's what we talk about. That's the death spiral, essentially, right there. Over a long enough period, it has to all come crashing down, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, but like when I think of the death spiral, I think more lines like the government budget deficit
Yeah, the
versus
budget
their
deficit.
trade deficit, and you're running twin deficits. You're going At one point, you're racking up debt, and at another point, you're not making any money. And so you're kind of just clogging up the tubes at both ends where nothing's coming in, but you're throwing everything out, and eventually you run out. But this is definitely related in some way. I just can't exactly articulate how. But then on the other end, what you have is you've got, well, okay, well, that's how it's the money printing. So what do we do when we have a bunch of debt and a large trade deficit? So we're not making any money from other countries. In fact, we owe them money because we owe them interest on our debt that we took from them. And so how do we pay that debt? We have to print money. And so yes, yeah, it is the death spiral.
It's debt goes up, right? You don't collect enough. You print more to pay off debt. Well, when you print more to pay off debt, your existing money becomes worth less. You then have to print more to have more amount of what you had. And now it's just continually devaluing your currency, essentially, I believe is what the death spiral is.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about I mentioned earlier over text, the modern monetary theory versus the Austrian school of economics.
Mm-hmm.
The modern monetary theory acknowledges something that is true, which is that everyone thinks of it as the government taxes you to take money in so that they can then have money to spend on, everyone thinks, oh, I pay my taxes and then that money goes to roads. That's not actually true. The government's going to pay for the roads if they need the roads. They print the money. They don't need they can pay for whatever they want. But the reason they tax it is to keep the money supply relatively stable. So whatever they spend, they got to try to suck back into the system. They got to absorb it. And the modern monetary theory people think that, okay, well, the same applies in a sense where if there's an economic downturn, well, then we could just print the money and inject it in the system there, and then we can absorb it later on by sucking it back in. But that's the problem, is the absorption mechanism. When you do that, it inflates because everything in the markets, properties, stocks, all assets, it's all speculative. It's all betting on the future. And so when you do that, what you do is you set the precedent of, okay, so now every time there's an economic downturn, we're going to come in and we're going to print more money. And when that happens, everything's going to come right back up. So what do? You take away the risk. So when you take away the risk, all the fucking billionaires and all the people, all the bankers and all the people that the left hates, well, they took away all of their risk. And so, if these people are really greedy people, like they say they are, which they definitely are, they're going to put all of their money on the line. It's like having a bet on FanDuel, but getting a money back guarantee if you're wrong. It's like, well, then I'm all in. They're going to go all in on these risky bets. And what that's going to do is pump up the stock prices. And so you're going to see these sky high stocks. I mean, PE ratios right now. I was looking at a stock earlier that the PE ratio was 550%, and the fucking or not percent, 550. And the fucking the news was saying
which means it's like
a buy. They were saying it's a buy. It's going to go up, and I said that's fucking insane. That's hundreds of times more than it's worth. But of course it's going to go up because there's no risk. And so why would I hang on to my dollar, or why would I buy a bond or some safe investment when I can just put all my money into some crazy risky stock when I know that if I go broke, well, then the government's just going to pay me the money back, and then I can buy more stock, which will boost my other stocks back, and I'll get all of it back, and then I get to play again. And that's what's happening now. And there's really, I'm sure there is, maybe there is, but I can't see a way out of that.
No, there's only one way out of that, and that's collapse, essentially, because you cannot possibly like stop the ride, right? And that's what kind of you're saying is there's no way out of this because what are you going to say at a certain point? Like, oh, actually, we're not backing up your bets anymore. Like,
well, no, I mean that's what I agree with you. There is a way out of it. That's it. They should say no. Enough's enough. We're gonna go fucking bankrupt if we keep doing this. But they're not going to do that because they don't care about the long term. They care about keeping things afloat while they're in that position. And obviously it's mostly boomers taking these positions who are going to retire in 5-10 years. And so they're not worried about 30 years. They're worried about 5 years. And they know, well, if I keep pushing along, I can make it, I can make it good. And then I can pass on to the next guy. And if it fucks up, if it all goes to shit when he's in charge, well, then that's his problem. I'm out. That is a fundamental reason why, all the Trump Biden back and forth is like they're both like old dudes who are going to be gone by the time we see the consequences of their actions. So what the hell is going on?
Age caps for politicians. If
Age
there's an
cap.
age, if
That's
there's an age,
bipartisan. I agree with that
yeah.
100%.
Also, what do you think about this one? Youngest age min, 18 years old.
It should be maybe not 18, but 25. I would 100% agree with 25. 18 is
25 is a
pushing
nice
it.
middle.
I just know myself as an 18-year-old. I was a total fucking idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I was
But
too,
I thought I was super smart.
but again, with like the voting thing as well, it's if you're old enough to vote at 18, should you not be old enough to lead at 18? If you're
I
old
mean,
enough, if you're old
fair.
enough to die for your country at 18, should you not be old enough to lead at 18?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to it just because I think,
2025
you know,
makes more sense realistically. Just because I agree with you at 18, 18 versus 25, that's a pretty big difference. But like, how can you ask someone to die for you, but you can't lead? How can you ask someone to vote at that age, but they can't lead?
yeah, no, actually, no, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm coming around. I think it should be legal. For one, I don't like the idea of like a 19, 20-year-old being in charge of the country.
Who's going
But
to
I
vote for him is the other thing. Right,
exactly. I do think
right.
it should be legal. It would just be like a nonsensical
Yeah.
idea. Like no one would vote for. I would like to think at least no one
Yeah,
would
you
vote
would hope.
unless he had like Mad Riz or something. But whatever these kids are thinking. But yeah, I mean, I do think that's fair. There should be a kind of a set age for all that type of stuff. If you can go to war, you can have a beer, you can vote, and you can run.
Exactly.
Make it 21. Make all of them 21. I would
Make it
actually,
21.
I would take the opposite. This is what I would think. I would take the opposite approach. I would say rather than bringing the age down to 18, I think we bump the voting age up to 21. We keep it in line with drinking. We bump the draft up to 21. Keep it in line with drinking, and then you bring the other one, the running for office down,
I'm
so
in.
they're all 21. You make 21, you're officially adult. 21.
I'm in because it's got to be equal across the board.
It should be equal across the board.
Doesn't really matter where you place the line. That's almost arbitrary at a certain point.
You should
But
also have to pass a test. I'm still a fan of passing the test. To run for office, I mean, not to vote.
okay, to run for office, that'd be good.
Voting would be
Honestly,
all right too.
to
But
vote, what if we had direct democracy, but to avoid the rule of the mob, you have to pass a test to be able to vote?
I love that. I like that, but that will never happen just because think about it, like so many politicians rely on all of the people who couldn't pass the test. Like
Well, yeah,
that's a both sides thing, I think too.
no, and that's not something that will ever get passed via our Congress. Like literally, that's something that has to be a sweeping, nationalistic, unifying movement that is like a will of the people sort of deal versus an act of Congress,
A revolution.
a revolution.
We started the episode off with talking about what form a revolution takes. A technological revolution, in my mind, is the most likely. I mean, I think we might be living through a revolution and not knowing it.
Yep.
Over the last 10 years or so, 5 at the least, and it might go on another 5, 10. But we're going to come out, 10, 15 years from now. The world's going to be entirely different. The government's going to be entirely different. The way we do things is going to be entirely different. And it's going to be mostly due to technology. If you look at Trump, the last 10 years, let's be honest, the last 10 years, Trump announced on the elevator in 2015 that he was running for president. And since then, the political landscape has been an absolute circus. I mean, I guess my point being is that the technology is actually the cause. And maybe the 2008 financial crisis might have been the root cause, but coincidentally, the technology was kind of coming up at the same time. And we had this new innovative technology that communication has revolutionized, where now, for the first time ever, you can communicate instantaneously with anyone you want or everyone all at the same time. Trump jumps on that, takes advantage of that. So I think we're experiencing the revolution, but it was a technological revolution. And I would say the same thing applies to the 1920s, 30s, 40s, where there was a revolution there. Even the Bolsheviks, the Nazis, all of these movements that formed, and then eventually it came to a solid conclusion, a stable world order. All of these stemmed from the invention and adoption of the radio. another communication technology, which for the first time allowed one person to speak what they wanted to speak and broadcast to however many people were in their on their frequency.
Is that something
Media is the
you
same
brought
thing, I
up?
feel
Is
like.
that almost all like world revolutions are technology revolutions?
Yeah, I mean that's a theory. I'm not gonna die on that hill. I'm sure someone might be able to find some that weren't, but I
Well,
do
well,
think that generally it does they do seem to correlate, I would say. The cause
I'm
and
looking
effect, I'm not sure, but they do seem to correlate.
I'm looking back at it now. Like, all right, just a couple big ones off the top of my head, like the leaving from antiquity to modernity. I believe is the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution, right? So that was literally a revolution of both thought and technology
Printing press.
together. The printing press,
I mean, was
radio, you
that was
said.
about the same time, right? Or printing
Well,
press
the
was
Renaissance was 1700s. No, it
okay, so
was.
it
No,
was a
no.
little after.
Gutenberg was in the 16 or 1700s, wasn't he?
I thought it was like 15. Hang on, let me ask the overlords. But keep going
Well,
on.
no, that's the same thing. Like Gutenberg is 1500. I think the Renaissance is like 1600s or something. So I think that literally correlates.
Printing press adopted in 1440, or no, printing press invented in 1440, adopted in 1480 or so. Renaissance period. Oh no, yeah, I was wrong. Printing press was back in the 1400s, but the Renaissance was in the 1500s, so it was right after.
Yeah. I had my first date wrong on the Renaissance period, but
But no, that does make sense. Yeah, so
yeah,
as soon as the printing press is invented, the dissemination of information is it skyrockets, and all of a sudden
yes.
all of these smart people who are creative thinkers who would have otherwise spent their entire lives toiling on a farm now have access to information, and they're able to like put together ideas and then also communicate those ideas out to the general public and get everyone else thinking along that same path. That yeah, I think that was like literally the birth of, I would say, the second
That's
cognitive revolution, the enlightenment, you know.
it's like I think that's where modernity is, like that's where we draw the line between antiquity and modernity, is literally coming out of the Middle Ages and then like the Renaissance hits. I think the Industrial Revolution is after then the Renaissance, I think.
Well, so you've got the Renaissance and then you've got the Dutch. Now, the Dutch, it was between 1600 and 1610. I can't remember the exact date. That's when capitalism was invented. That was where the Bank of Amsterdam was
Yeah.
founded. And at the same time, the Dutch East India Company was founded. So this is very shortly so you had the printing press, then the Renaissance. This is where this is Leonardo da Vinci and the Medici family, and they're coming up with these new creative ideas for art and architecture and engineering and all this stuff. And then in the early 1600s, you have the Dutch, and the Dutch are absolute beasts. And what they do is they create the first like sustainable replicable ships, like models for a ship. They had like a model similar to like the Ford Model T. They had like whatever model ship that they can replicate and build and produce en masse. And they made a shit ton of these and they dominated the oceans. At the same time, they invented capitalism, they invented the stock market and all of the economic things that we were just talking about. Um, and then also the Dutch East India Company. So they were, starting the then 250 or so year span of imperialism that followed. And so they really took off early 1600s. They dominated like basically the 1600s to the early 1700s. And then that's when the British took over. And that's when you have, I think the first industrial age was like probably around the early 1700s, something like that. I might be wrong on that, but I think it was something like that.
Well, and then here's another one of technology and like changing global order. Um, these 30s, the invention of the automobile, and that's when America absolutely takes off as a global superpower.
So I asked ChatGPT, 1760 to 1840 is technically the first industrial era where
Mm,
industrial revolution. And so during this time, they discover
the
like the
steam, this
steam engine. They're coal mining. They've got factories going. I think textiles was like a
yeah.
big one. They had like the spinning jenny and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And this is all going down in like a couple cities in Britain, like London and a couple others probably. And then that exactly right. The American superpower came because of the second industrial age, which was
The
telephone, electricity,
telephone, electricity, automobile,
automobile, yeah,
the
the
factory line.
railroad,
What's that
even with
called?
yeah, the Ford,
Assembly line.
the Ford assembly line, right? Yeah. That's what made America the powerhouse. But now, and this is why I bring up China all the time. And I seem like we always kind of end this thing, and I go on a rant about China. But it always comes back to China. We are currently in the third industrial revolution, are we not? It seems like we are. I
Yeah,
mean, all of this digital
the
technology,
technological,
we communicate in a different way. We have,
yeah,
all
the
these,
digital revolution.
yeah, and productivity revolutions are what make or break empires. Whoever capitalizes on the new industrial age becomes the dominant power. And I mean, right now it seems like it's us because we do all of the wealth of the world is in Silicon Valley. But how much of that is just being gatekeeped out? I know that there's other countries out there, other companies out there that are innovating these crazy things with AI and with all this stuff. But now it's just a matter of like, will the capital uh, flee that way, or will it stay in Silicon Valley? Trump and the government and the corporations are all doing everything they can to convince that capital to stay. I think that's like a good layout of where we are, in the status of the world right now, which is not good for us. I don't because that never works in the long run. But
Yeah, I saw a few videos, I think a day or two ago, about China, and I was just fucking blown away by like their 10 to 20 and like 30-year plans versus, do we have a 1 year plan?
that's the thing. It seems Trump is running the country. He doesn't know what he's going to tweet tomorrow. I mean,
Right.
that's what it seems like, at least. I don't know how much of that is the theatrical art
And
of
dude,
deception, but
China has like, it's like the 10 years they'll be like completely interconnected by high speed rail. Like 20 years, I saw like they're going to be like collecting like regular data and like minerals from Mars, like just all this like crazy shit that's like, all right, maybe they don't hit every single milestone, right? Like that's completely possible, but at least they have like a vision.
I mean, they made a bill called Made in China 2025. They made this bill in 2001. They were planning for a quarter century. And I mean, I don't think that they exactly hit their goals, but they got damn close. And so
Yeah.
it's like even just having the goal in itself is step one. And we're not
Right.
even
Right.
doing that. So
No, we can't fucking agree on, again, what should be done tomorrow, next month, a year from now. Fuck, we don't have anything close to a 5 year plan, a 10 year plan, a 20 year plan.
all right, sorry guys, technical difficulties there. Apparently our technology is not that great, but we were talking about China. We were saying what was the last thing we left off on? I was saying how we're gonna have this
Uh,
25-year plan.
yeah, I said China has like a 10 year plan, a 20 year plan, a 30 year plan. It really seems like America doesn't have a 1 month plan, a 1 week plan, a 1 year plan. And that's kind of where we're getting dominated right now.
Yes, I agree. We can't even agree on basic facts,
Yeah.
basic ideas like this. We're arguing about these nonsense cultural issues, and these are highlighting dominating our attention spans in a world that is designed to ensure that you have a short attention span, and you spend all of it worried about these social issues. This is why I've said a couple times that I think social media is more of a weapon than anything. I think if I were running a government like China's, it was trying to usurp the long-lasting superpower, the incumbent who dominates the world order. My number one priority would be to make sure that I have hundreds of thousands of either real people willing to work for money or bots who are going to get in and disrupt the American discourse so that they cannot formulate a plan because they're too busy arguing with the other people who might not even exist. It's like a psychological warfare game. It seems like conspiracy theory. It's uncomfortable to think about. No one wants to hear that. But I would almost say it's not even a theory. It's more of like a logical reasoning. Like, to me, it seems obvious. To me, it seems, of course, this is happening. I would be more shocked if it wasn't happening.
Did you see the new Superman movie by chance?
No, I haven't. I do want to watch that one, though.
It was all right. I actually saw it in like 4D, I think it's called, where you have like vibrating seats and they're blowing wind in your face and like mist. So it's completely disorienting. I have no idea if it was a good movie or not. I was laughing the entire time from the theatrical experience. But what was a good part, a funny part, they go into like, I think it was Lex Luthor, like the bad guy. They go into like his like lair or whatever. and you like the camera pans and there's like 1,000 monkeys and they're all like typing away at like computers or like touch screens or something. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? It's like, oh, that's my monkey troll farm. I have them working round the clock, like stirring up things online to swing it in my favor. It's like literally like, yeah, half the shit you're seeing is probably fucking monkeys, like literally like posting shit online or trolls, AI, whatever. But it's just one of those things that you're you're reading these things, and not only is it not reality, it's not even like a real person's ideas.
I mean, we've seen these Sora videos and the
Those are
generative
crazy.
AI, even on Snapchat. Have you seen the Snapchat thing? I've been throwing the Snapchat ones around. It's like with a couple quick clicks on Snapchat, you can create like an entire scene that looks very real that's happening right in front of you. It's all fake, but I
I've
mean,
been seeing.
oh, I'll send you some stuff, dude. I sent this whole thing to like some of my friends and family. Like, you can fake an entire life. Like I sent it one. It was like the first one I was holding a little baby, and I was like, "Oh yeah, my son Donald Elon, he's born today." And then the next one was like a little toddler, and then a kid who's going off, a kid who's in high school, and then a kid I said first day of college. It keeps going on. And I like basically like this entire lifespan of this person. I just created it, and it took me 10 minutes in my room here while I was sitting around before work one morning, like wait, just killing time. Imagine if I was a professional, I could literally create an Instagram account, say 30 years from now. Well, you can watch you can look at a Twitter account of someone who's been around for 30 years and you watch them from the time they were 15 to the time they're 25 to now they're a full middle-aged man, and it turns out all of it was bullshit. That's pretty scary, I think.
So I have an interesting one here. I don't know if we brought up the AI bubble on here specifically, like the triangulation of money that's seemingly going around. Like,
Mm.
I'll give you 200 billion, you give me 200 billion, I'll buy 200 billion of your chips, you invest 200 billion into my stock. It's creating a circular reference essentially where wealth is getting created out of basically nothing. That's not really what I want to talk about though.
I do want to talk about that. Sorry, go ahead. Say what you're
Yeah,
saying, but let's make sure we get back to that. That was the
yeah,
one I was forgetting. I wanted to bring up.
yeah. So I think this would be a good spot to end it. We'll talk about this, but you can see the edges of despair possibly. You can see the beginning of the end already of like probably what's going to be like the first cycle of AI, like this first insane crazy run that they're on. Is Sam Altman is changing his tune a little bit. He was always a anti-ad guy, always like advertisements will never do it sort of thing. They're now starting to create content based on like ad revenue. Also, another thing that he just proposed could be done, and this is going to be probably one of the big downfalls of our society, is AI companionship. He said at like the end of one of his tweets recently that they're going to start looking into like erotic adult content creation, essentially. Like we've talked about AI psychosis. This is going to be like the man or woman of your dreams that you can create yourself and will have perfect attention to detail to you in every single way, will know your every thought, wish, whim, desire. So that sounds good, right?
That sounds like a dystopian hellhole. It was only like 2 years ago when I first heard someone theorizing about how, oh yeah, this might end up happening, where people are going to start becoming attached to these AIs in like a romantic or sexual way. And it seemed insane at that point. And it's only been 2 fucking years. And we
And
are
now it's
definitely
reality.
there. I mean, I don't really disagree with the policy. If you're a full consenting adult,
That's what he
and
said.
you want to
Let
just
adults be
engage
adults.
in whatever type of nonsense you want with an AI robot, then that's fine. I don't think that that I don't see any reason to restrict that. But I mean, there's a lot of people who might be down bad. They might be down bad, and it's maybe no fault of their own, but they're vulnerable and they're able to be swayed into some type of romantic, exotic relationship with an AI chatbot. That is not good for the birth rate. I'm a fan of the birth rate going up. That seems like it might drive the birth rate down.
Gen Z is having less sex than any other generation has before it. This is just going to exacerbate the issue.
this might be more of a spectrum than a one-time event, whereas like, social media started decaying romantic relationships, and then like when I say romantic relationships, I mean between two human beings. Social media started decaying that, and then the TikTok reel started decaying it more, and then the more immersed in this technology we get, the more we drift apart. And so, now this is just the next step. I think that seems logical, but I think that this step is much bigger than that original step.
Yeah. How how possible do you think it'll be in the next, let's call it 30 to 40 years, that not only can you like have a relationship with an AI, but that you can essentially like have a child with an AI, as in like a robot that could essentially like be an artificial womb, or be an artificial like semen, right?
I mean, you need the sperm and the egg, but I could see it being like a next level in vitro type thing where
Right.
you can, yeah, there somehow needs to be a sperm and an egg connection, but that doesn't necessarily mean
The
it
next
could
step
be
in vitro.
it could be that the man who is in love with the AI robot and then some other female who he doesn't know is also in love with an AI robot, and they they can work something out that way. I mean, it sounds like a Black Mirror episode, but I don't think that we're. What was the question? How far off are we?
Is that entirely like, is that crazy to theorize at this point? I don't
No, I
think so.
think eventually it does happen.
Yeah.
Whether that's 10 years or 100, I
Who
don't know.
knows?
I hope it's 1,000 because that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good at all. I mean, that sounds like we are the dominant species. We've been the dominant species. But if you look at machines as a species that has the advantage of the fact that there is another species, the incumbent most intelligent species to ever walk the earth, trying to help you evolve and putting the pieces together, and that's evolving at a rate that's exponential compared to the rate we're evolving. If we look at how fast technology has evolved, it does follow a similar exponential curve as how fast humans evolved, except for it's way more parabolic. I think it's gonna come quicker. I'll put it this way. Sorry, a little bit of a I did the weave, but I would say in a summary of that, I think that that's coming quicker than any of us assume it's coming. I think AI came quicker than we would have assumed it would have came. I
Yeah.
think I think that's going to be the status quo from now on, is that it's going to happen faster than you think it will.
Yeah. Let's. I think I agree with that as well. I think let's end it with this last one: the triangulation of money that's going around. Did you? Is
Yeah,
this the?
yeah.
Is the diagram you're looking up?
Yeah, yeah. So I
There we
got
go.
it here.
Perfect.
So
Let's
here
go.
we go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're
So
talking about
basically,
the megacorp. I like the word you coined it on one of the
uh,
last episodes. This happened a few days after you first gave me that word, and that was the first word that popped in my head. Was like, this is a megacorp. So if everyone can see this, it's and Nick, I'm sure you've got. Let me give a quick. Sorry if this takes a minute here. Let me give a quick take on this, but then I want to hear what you've got as well, because I started looking at this the other day, and it's still a little bit mind bending to me to try to figure out how this all happened. So I did a little bit of an analysis. And so basically, here's what's happening. So Nvidia does not make the chips. They design the chips, they buy the chips from the fabricator, which is TSMC, and then they sell them. They own the design, and they basically buy them in bulk and sell them. That's Nvidia. Nvidia dominates the GPU game, which is the required chip for AI. All the other chip manufacturers fell behind because they didn't see that GPUs were going to be important for AI. This was, AI happened so fast, no one saw it coming. Nvidia just so happened to be positioned perfectly, and as soon as the wave hit, they were in the position and they skyrocketed. So you can see right in the middle of this chart, $4.5 trillion. That's the market cap of Nvidia. That's the biggest company in the world. That's the biggest company that's ever existed by far. So OpenAI, that's ChatGPT. That's what everyone knows as AI. That's the brand. They've got the brand name. They've got first movers advantage. This is the LLM, large language model producer. And so what they do is they buy chips off of NVIDIA, and they train large language models, which means they just feed it a shit ton of data, and they're a software company, essentially. They're like an app. But they need NVIDIA's chips to do what they're doing. And so, what ends up happening here is a cartel is formed. NVIDIA, OpenAI, Oracle, Intel, Microsoft, and AMD, and CoreWeave. I almost forgot about CoreWeave. Those are the big seven that we need to worry about in this cartel. NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel all do the same thing. They all have agreements with OpenAI to send them a shit ton of GPUs for a shit ton of money. The difference is some of them have different deals than others. Because NVIDIA has a dominant GPU, basically a monopoly, part of that deal is they're going to give OpenAI an investment so that they can pay for it. So what's happening is NVIDIA is saying, hey, we want to make a deal with you to sell you all of our GPUs. And if you're OpenAI, you're saying, I'd love to make that deal, except I don't have the money. And NVIDIA is saying, here's the money. Now give it back to us to pay for the GPUs. They're not buying, this is a common misconception, they're not buying equity in OpenAI. They don't own shares of OpenAI. They own nothing in OpenAI. They are fronting them the money. It is basically like a zero interest loan. Now there's a big difference between that and what OpenAI is doing with AMD, who is kind of the weaker. They're doing the same thing. They're also selling them chips, but they're the weaker company. They're also an American company that we want to prop up and we want to give, we want to boost their market cap. It's in the American interest to do so. So they're offering them a similar deal, except it's the opposite. OpenAI is going to give them money, but they're going to take equity warrants. The whole point being is that we're going to invest in you. Then we're going to buy a bunch of your chips to give you a shit ton of revenue, which is going to bump your stock price up. And then we're going to earn our money back by taking our shares back. So they're owning part of that company. Intel is kind of hanging on by a last leg, in my opinion. This is not investing advice. This is education purposes only. I don't think Intel has anything going for them. I think they're going to squeeze them dry, take what they can get out of them, tell the CEO, thanks for that, here's $20 million, get lost, and then fuck the shareholders. That's my opinion. That could be wrong, but it seems like it because Intel's got nothing going for them. But they also have a deal. They're getting shafted on the deal. But either way, all these deals are kind of similar. Microsoft and Oracle are obviously the next layer of that. And then CoreWeave is responsible for the infrastructure. They're getting a real good deal through NVIDIA. But I realize I'm taking a long time, so I don't want to get too into the technical details here. But yeah. OpenAI is at the center of this fucking boom. And all the chip companies are battling for their business, and they're making these crazy fucking, what did you call them? Round table deals that is basically hiking up the revenue.
References.
Yeah, they're circular deals. Yeah.
Yeah. So put in a little bit of perspective, what Richie's kind of saying. OpenAI is not profitable. OpenAI is set to make or lose money this year, Richie.
Well, they're definitely losing money this year. They're probably losing money for the next 4 or 5 years.
$8.9 billion OpenAI is going to lose this year. OpenAI
I think it might be a lot more than that, actually. I think it might be.
OpenAI has signed, I believe, I could have this number wrong. Doesn't really matter at some point what the number is. A $300 billion deal with Oracle. Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Sam Altman has admitted what you just said. OpenAI is basically guaranteed to not be profitable until bare minimum 2030. Probably won't be even until then. Might be like 2035. So where does the money come from in order to pay off the investment that these companies are making in them, Richie?
So where it comes from the investor sentiment because of inflated numbers.
It comes from future investors. How do you pay off your investments? Well, we have to get money from somewhere. We'll get money from other people who want to do business with us.
Well, yes, right? and this is why I said originally that I think Trump has something to do with this, because what's going on is basically companies are taking the role of what government would normally do in a critical technology that could be used for military purposes. During World War II, for example, there was no customer for the atomic bomb, but it took a shit ton of front-loaded investment, and so the government invested. But we're in a position where we don't have the capital to invest, and so I believe this is a conspiracy theory. The Trump administration and the government as a whole broker these deals to basically avoid hurting America's balance sheets, but still providing capital to the companies that need capital in order to, in order to build their infrastructure.
Here's what I'm building towards. They're losing billions of dollars a year. They're getting investments of huge sums of money. They won't have future revenues until 30 or 35. Current investments will be paid off with future investors' money. Do you know what that is? That is a Ponzi scheme. You are not creating any value in and of itself right now. The value that you are creating is from other investors propping up the value.
Yes, but the other investors are speculative, so you're not creating any value right now. But what they're doing is they're buying the stocks, giving them the money. It's a bet, and they're saying, if you want to bet on us becoming one of the most productive and dominant megacorps that will eventually have insane revenues and insane earnings, well, then you can invest now, and you're early. And by investing now, what you're doing is you're paying off the people who lost on this deal. And to be fair, the only company that loses on this deal when it comes to financial terms is OpenAI. I ran the numbers the other night, and OpenAI loses, where is it? Every other company gains money on this except for OpenAI. They foot the bill, and they take losses of $95 billion out of the total. But I mean, the amount of money moving around, the total money moving around is over $900 billion.
And so here's the big issue is all of these gains are currently ill-gotten gains because there is not currently a revenue driving any of these gains. This is all pure speculation. What happens when there is no revenue? When 5 years from now, OpenAI still hasn't replaced 50% of the workforce and OpenAI still hasn't fucking revolutionized technology. All they've given us so far is a misinformation tool and ability to create deep fake pornography.
But that's all investments. I mean, that's the same thing with the internet originally. All investment was speculative. That's the dot-com bubble. And there was no revenue at the time. I mean, companies like Google didn't even know how to monetize until like 2004, 2005. Amazon, people were investing in Amazon in 1996 and they didn't make a profit until like 2005. So like it does happen.
This bubble
it is a bet.
It's way fucking bigger than the previous bet.
I do agree, but I think the technology is a superior technology to anything we've ever seen before. I mean, would you agree on that or no? I've seen different views on that. I mean, people talk about, generative videos and who gets AI slop, all this shit. It's like, yeah, that's what it is now, but this is the iPod Shuffle, dude. Eventually we're going to have the fucking iPhone, like it is the build up still, so, but yes, I mean, obviously it still is a gamble. It always is.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to end us off on. What do you think?
All right. Yeah. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Invest wisely. This is not investment advice.
Not investing advice, just an education. But
yeah. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.